Balay has adopted the psychosocial rehabilitation work, or the PRW approach, in its programs for the IDPs, which integrated curative, proactive, and preventive interventions. It strives to address the following aspects of displacement: psychological, which focuses on the well-being and trauma of people; social, which focuses on conflict management or transformation and development disruption; peace and human rights, which focus on reconciliation and justice questions.
Yung PRW kasi, malaki ang kaibahan niya doon sa practice.
PRW is quite different from the practices of other organizations related to psychosocial rehabilitation. Balay's PRW has 3 components. Prior to the current practice, Balay had focused only on the curative component. It was very internal, which involves helping victims, families, and survivors. PRW also involves the preventive and proactive components. Although Balay continues to provide services using the curative component, it still implements preventive and proactive components through advocacy work, which include public information and campaign, education and training, networking, partnership building, and lobbying. Balay applies all these components from the local level up to the international level.
Mula sa local level hanggang sa international level.
Through healing and therapeutic partnerships with its partner beneficiaries, Balay helps restore their normal functioning, regaining their capacities for active participation in family and community affairs, and in the process, the society in general.
When you say curative kasi,
it deals more about direct services with victims and survivors of internally displaced persons. When you say curative, it is more focused on how they would come back to their previous way of life. When we do curative activities, we integrate all activities under the Integrated Rehabilitation Program. We have the Youth and Children Development Savings Generating Project. There are also other human rights violation victims whom we also assist. We would like to provide children beneficiaries lifelong learning which they can use if and when something happens again. At least we are able to improve their capabilities to respond to crises in their lives up to a certain level.
When we say proactive, that means providing response. When we say proactive, that means providing response before the problem starts. Proactive means doing something in order to prevent unintended displacement to happen, or to alleviate the suffering of the people, or to prevent the situation of the displaced persons from getting worse. We do that by contributing to policy changes and in stimulating the government to come up with policies, structures, and programs so that internal displacement will be prevented. Balay is involved in various peace movements and coalitions that call for the partisan conflict actors like the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the government of the Republic of the Philippines to pursue peace dialogues in resolving the fundamental issues behind the armed conflict and internal displacement. Part of our work is to create space for the community people to get their voices heard by the policymakers. This requires Balay to play the role of a facilitator to help empower the community so that they would be able to articulate their situation. Para sila mismo mag-articulate ng kanilang mga kalagayan.
Over the years of its psychosocial rehabilitation work among human rights victims and internally displaced persons, Balay has developed expertise in addressing the actual needs of its clientele. Its program methodology of immersing the staff and officers within the communities of its clientele provided them the opportunity to actually see and live their clientele's lives.
Maliban dun sa counseling sessions.
Aside from the counseling sessions, which include briefing among traumatized children, we also offer educational trainings to promote children's rights. This is done so that the children will know their rights, including how to respect and promote these rights. We also have human development activities, for example, self-awareness, value clarification, processing of post-traumatic stress symptoms, so that youth could appreciate the changes within themselves after the conflict.
Kita nila dun sa kanilang mga sarili after nung conflict.
We are giving trainings like disaster management, the IDP's rights, because they themselves need to stand and to speak up on their own.
Balay is there
not to transform their lives. They will transform their own lives. We are only acting as facilitators so that they could understand what their current situation is, so that they could be able to understand what they went through, because sometimes the pain about the conflict stays in their minds, something which they have never experienced before.
Hindi nila naramdaman yun before.
Although Balay has already reached a point where it has successfully developed an acceptable and effective technology in helping its beneficiaries, its officers and staff believe that it can still enrich its potentials towards the sustainability of what it has become, a home for the victims of human rights violations and the internally displaced. Human rights violations are still being committed against people. A very volatile situation between the military and other armed groups in the Philippines and elsewhere in the world still exists. These scenarios show that Balay should continuously hone its psychosocial rehabilitation work. The institution needs to engage the active participation of the government and the other members of the civil society, not only in providing assistance among the human rights victims and internally displaced persons, but more importantly, its work towards genuine peace and development.